Hello all, Pastor Rus here. Thanks for joining me on Pastor Rus Says. Here's this week's sermon. You know, I thought about deviating from our sermon series for this week because, of course, this is the week we honor our high school seniors who are graduating. Until I looked at the text for the week and the sermon topic for the week and thought, you know what, I don't need to change anything. The Holy Spirit's made sure that this just fits right in. And so I looked at this and thought, you know, this is perfect. This is a really good thing to talk to not only the congregation about as part of the series that we're doing on the journey of faith. This is a really great thing to talk to our high school seniors about. And so I want to talk to you all today about this notion that we are on a journey. Our faith is very much a journey. It is a process that we are going through. Now, there are a lot of journeys in life, and I am a traveler. I like to go different places. I usually like to go different places and do kind of exciting and interesting things, but then I like to go somewhere very comfortable in the evening. A nice hotel room. When I was a kid, we camped a lot. I have deep appreciation for camping, but, pretending to be homeless for a period of time is not my idea of vacation. I like to go somewhere and see something good and then get a really nice hotel room and have a nice warm bed. My wife and I, we like to go to state parks and national parks and hike around. We hiked and saw beautiful things in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington last year, and we were in rainforests and mountaintops. And as we came to the end of the day, we went to our hotel room. As we were out there, though, we came to this beautiful location called Hurricane Ridge. Hurricane Ridge is at the very top of a mountain in the Cascade Range, and it is this long and winding road that goes up this mountain, and I think we drove for about 35 minutes to get to the top of this mountain. Got to the top of the mountain. It's the month of June. There's still snowpack, and just everything smells like pine trees. I turned to my wife and said, it smells like Christmas up here. And we just but there were these crazy people on the road with us who were riding bicycles. Now, I don't know whose idea of vacation that was, but there were just a long string of people who were riding their bicycle up, I think it's like almost 20 miles straight up this winding path to the top of Hurricane Ridge. And I thought to myself, who says? That sounds like fun. God bless the adventurers of this world. I was happy to do it in my car. In fact, we got to the top in my car, and I thought to myself, man, that was a lot of work. I had to turn the wheel left, then turn the wheel right, then turn the wheel left. But there are people who ride bicycles up mountains, and there are people who climb mountains. I really don't get that. There are things that I enjoy doing in my off time. None of them necessarily directly endanger my life. But there are folks that just have made a life climbing mountains. And, we have a great many mountains here on our world, some of which are very, very difficult to climb. Some required a long time to get there. In fact, Mount Everest, which is, depending on how you measure it, the tallest mountain in the world, actually pokes up above our atmosphere. So if you're going to the top of Mount Everest, you're going to reach a point during the ascent where the planet literally says, nope, you can't go any further. You can't breathe. But people have made innumerable quantities of attempts at climbing Mount Everest. Of course, the first person to be successful at making the ascent was Sir Edmund Hillary. You could just sort of look at this guy, look at his picture, and you're like, that's an adventurer. That's the guy who says, I'm going on vacation this June. I think I'll risk my life on top of the world's most deadly mountain. He put together this incredible ascent to go to the top of Mount Everest. He was the first person to summit the mountain. He did this incredible thing where he gathered some of the best mountaineers on the planet, this enormous team of people. It was a small army of people at the base of the mountain as they got to the mountain, and they slowly began their ascent up the mountain. And as they ascended the mountain, they built camps for themselves as they went up, one camp after another camp after another camp. Each camp got a little smaller because they would leave some personnel behind, because some of the individuals who were on the trip were more skilled mountaineers than others. And like, you left your cook, down at the lower camp. His job was just, to make dinner, not to, traverse crevasses. And as he got closer and closer to the top, things got more and more difficult. And of course, like I said, there's no atmosphere on top of Mount Everest. When you get up there, he had to bring with him equipment, specifically oxygen, that there would be a way for them to breathe on the final ascent. And they could only bring enough equipment for 2 people, because it was heavy, it was difficult, and they were making a mountain climb. And the second person that went with him is in this photograph here. You can't see him because, of course, he's wearing a mask and oxygen and goggles because, quite frankly, it is just deadly at the top of Mount Everest. This, though, is not Sir Edmund Hillary. Interestingly enough, this is the photograph of the summit. This is the photograph of them reaching the top of Mount Everest. But this is not Sir Edmund Hillary. This is a man by the name of Tenzing Norgay. Now, maybe you know who Tenzing Norgay is, but maybe you've never heard of Tenzing Norgay before. He was the second person to ascend to the top of Mount Everest, because he was literally behind Sir Edmund Hillary, guiding him to the top, because Tenzing Norgay was a Sherpa. Nowadays we say Sherpa and we sort of mean a person whose job it is to guide or carry things. But it's actually an ethnicity of people in the mountains of Nepal and Tibet. And they're different from us. Well, partly they're different from us because they spend their whole lives on mountaintops. This whole culture of people, the Sherpas, love to climb mountains. They love to endanger their lives in some of the most deadly places in the world. And when I say deadly, people have not stopped climbing Mount Everest. It's not like people said, oh, somebody got there. Oh, well, I guess I won't go. People still go up Mount Everest, but of course, it's a mountain. It's not like there are road signs on a mountain. It's not like somebody's gone up there and built a, super highway to get to the top of Mount Everest. It is still barely charted, and it is so dangerous that some of the principal landmarks that people navigate by when going up Mount Everest have to do with the fact that A, Mount Everest is incredibly dry at the top. B, it never thaws out, so it's always freezing cold at the top. And C, there are sections to it that simply cannot be accessed. And so over the years, any number of mountain climbers attempting to make it to the top have died in their attempt and have not been able to be brought back down. And so, for decades and decades, their remains have stayed there on top of Mount Everest. And so one of the principal sets of landmarks that mountain climbers who are ascending Mount Everest use are the colors of the clothing worn by the deceased mountain climbers. So if you get to the guy with the green boots, you're supposed to turn left and go up that cliff, because no one can get to him. It's far too dangerous. So imagine, this is how you know where to go, based on the remains of those who have died trying to make it there. And these guys were the first ones to make it. And Edmund Hillary couldn't have done it without his Sherpa, Tenzing Norgay. This is actually not Tenzing Norgay, it's one of his descendants. They still climb the mountains. They still take people up the mountains. And when I say they're different from us, not only are they different from us because they are dedicated to being mountain guides, they're physically different from us. They're biologically different from us. Their lungs work differently than ours do. The Sherpa people, their lungs work 2 to 4 times more efficiently than ours do. They literally breathe at higher altitudes better than we do. They are possessed of this special attribute in their blood that gets rid of carbon dioxide faster than ours does. So they actually are not only culturally dedicated to being on mountaintops, their bodies are adapted to being on mountaintops. And as they were coming to this deadly, deadly summit, Edmund Hillary had to make a decision. Who was he taking to the top? What person should he go with that last push up the final summit? And he did not choose any of his financial backers that were along on the trip. He did not choose any of his fellow Europeans who were along for the summit. He chose this man. And like I said, Tenzing Norgay, the photograph I showed you, it's the only photograph we have from the peak. Because when they got up there, Edmund Hillary took Tenzing Norgay's photograph and then realized that while Tenzing Norgay was the best mountain guide on the planet, he was also from Nepal and had never seen a camera before. And so had no idea how to take his photograph. And he said, I'll give it a try. And Edmund Hillary said, you know what? I couldn't have made it here without you. It really is more important that we have your photograph. Now, I've been talking about the journey that we're on the last few weeks. And I said, the first week I pointed out that none of us make the journey of faith alone. The story is not about Jesus and me. It's not about, I'm okay with Jesus, Jesus is okay with me, and the whole rest of the world can take a flying leap. That's not how this works. It's not how Jesus set it up. Jesus said, I'm going to set it up so that you're gathered together into a kingdom, into a very body of people, that you belong to each other, that you travel your faith together. This isn't a solo journey. You need each other. And then Jesus says, but you need to know where you're going. He says, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. I'm the only way to come to the Father. Jesus says, I am the unique path to come to God. And without me, you won't know the way. Now, having said that to you all, it's important to note this. Just because we're going there together and we know the way does not necessarily mean the way is easy. Sometimes the path looks a whole lot more like that. Now, I'd like to say that that's a really fancy Photoshop. That's an actual hiking path in Africa. In fact, I did a search for most dangerous hikes, and this actually only clocks in at number 3. There are, in fact, 2 more dangerous places to climb and hike in the world. I just didn't want to put them up there because they actually gave me vertigo to look at them. And I said, let's put this one up. This one at least isn't quite as terrifying. Those are actual stones that have been actually set in the side of that mountain over 150 years ago. And people still walk up the side of that mountain on those narrow steps, which are nothing more than... Thank you for listening to Pastor Rus Says. We hope you subscribe on iTunes. And you can also find us at Pastor Rus Ministries on Facebook. And if you go there, you can also see our twice-a-week Bible study, preview, review, with lots of extra bonus material. We hope to see you there, and until then, God bless.